Okay, let us read the book. Where is it? Where's the book? Where is it? Oh, there it is. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to read Aranzebia and the Dead Princess. A short note appears here, probably from the previous owner. Many scholars have discussed the existence of the Dead Princess's key, a powerful artifact, rumored to belong to Dahuta herself. These scrolls are the only evidence of its existence that I have been able to find. Long before she became Dahuta, the feared goddess of the sea, Aranzebia was a blessed child with good parents and generous godparents. Her family was rich and powerful, and she herself was stunningly beautiful. Visitors who caught a glimpse of the young elf maiden were known to linger in the elven kingdom far longer than they'd planned. Humans and elves alike were infatuated by Aranzebia's beautiful appearance, as well as her cold, mysterious demeanor. Though born to wealth and privilege, Aranzebia moved through the world like a ghost. She responded to no one and cared for nothing. Handsome men, fine food, silk clothes. The more she failed to react to the gifts men gave her, the more desperate each became to win her favor. Unmoved by her suitors and uninterested in the trappings of court, Aranzebia would often wander the woods that surrounded her family home. It was on one of these silent walks that she first discovered the ruins of the fantastic castle. Like all elven children, Aranzebia had been told to avoid the ancient ruins. But, facing the wrought iron gate, walls draped with glistening dew-touched ivy, all warnings were forgotten in the wonder of adventure. She slipped between the bars and crept up the path to the castle's grand entrance. Parched and gnarled topiaries flanked the cracking cobblestones like arthritic sentinels. At the castle's door, Aranzebia pushed through the curtains of cobwebs and made her way down a dark hall. She climbed a sweeping staircase infested with rats, then arrived at a terraced landing. The terrace overlooked the ocean, and the decades of salt had scoured deep pits into the stone railings. Aranzebia ran her fingers over them, then paused. Some of the gouges felt more like carvings, like words. Peering closer, she could just make them out. If you love me, you will release me from this prison, and your love will never end. What a strange message! Aranzebia couldn't help but wonder who'd written it, and more importantly, what it meant. She wondered if anyone had ever seen it before. It was so small and disguised so well amid the wear and tear from the sea, she doubted it. A surge of excitement welled within her. She was first to read this in the whole kingdom, in the whole world. She had to find the author herself. Aranzebia knew the ruins were ancient. She knew that in all likelihood, whoever wrote the message had been dead for years. But for the first time in her life, she felt excited. She did her best to make a logical search of the castle, but the longer she stayed, the more she felt drawn to the stairs that led below. As if somehow she knew already where the answers lay. Abandoning her careful search, she set out for the dungeons. She decided that every time she found a staircase, she would take it downwards. However, after following only one set of spiraling stairs, she discovered a mysterious glowing emanating from the end of a long, dark hallway. Aranzebia made her way down the hallway, stepping into a lavish, cozy bedroom filled with antique furniture. A pile of books stood beside a rocking chair, and a fire crackling in the hearth. And in the fires, a small object sparkled fiercely, a single golden key. Grasping the key, Aranzebia was shocked to find a ghostly door appear before her. It hadn't been there a moment ago. Her mind whirled with thoughts and fears. Tightening her lips, she shoved past them and slipped the key into the door's lock. The ghostly door swung open and revealed a human girl sleeping on a small bed. She seemed to be Aranzebia's age, but with an obsidian hair in place of an elf's platinum locks. As Aranzebia leaned closer, trying to determine if she was alive or dead, the strange girl's eyes opened. "Do you love me?" she asked Aranzebia. At first, Aranzebia was afraid, but as she stared into the girl's eyes, she knew that she could trust her. A love like she had never felt sprung up for her new sister, and she smiled and threw open her arms. Laughing, the girl sprang up and clutched Aranzebia's hand, leading her outside. When they left the tiny room, Aranzebia was shocked. The cobwebs and crumbling masonry were gone. The stony floor was padded with a lavish green carpet. The walls were lined with golden scones. The castle had become the most luxurious place Aranzebia had ever seen. The two girls raced through the castle halls, holding hands and giggling. The strange girl was kind, if somewhat arrogant. But Aranzebia found she didn't care. In fact, the young elf was more than happy doing anything the strange girl wanted. They tried on beautiful dresses, played with bejeweled toys, ate sumptuous feasts when they grew hungry. Elven customs were different than human ones, and Aranzebia had never played such games before. She found she loved them, and with each moment she loved her new friend more and more. Aranzebia had more fun than she could ever remember having. When she finally confessed she had to go, the strange girl didn't protest. She simply asked Aranzebia to keep her home a secret. She then gave her the golden key so she could find her way back when she wanted to visit again. When Aranzebia returned home, her family was in chaos. She had been missing for 3 days. They demanded to know where she had been. But frightened of betraying her new friend, Aranzebia refused to say.
Yo, Janis, are you there?
Yeah.
We are going to Dahuta. Wanna join?
Let me think about it. I'll let you know about 5 minutes.
You have some time. Kus is in the jail and we waiting for him.
Okay.
Just accept the rate.
Raiden?
I'm leaving. See you.
User left your channel.
Worried for their daughter's safety, Aranzebia's parents sent for a powerful mage, her godfather and namesake Aranzeb. Though young for an elf, Aranzeb had studied under the famous mage Alexander. He loved his namesake dearly and had always worried that her strange nature might someday get her into trouble. When her parents sent word of her mysterious disappearance and return, he came at once to investigate. Strange occurrences often accompany a young elf's budding magical talents, and Aranzeb suspected his goddaughter might share some interest in the art. But try as he might, he could not get to explain where she had been these 3 days. Even more troubling, he sensed an unusual aura surrounding the young girl which had not been there the last time they had met. He resolved to keep an eye on his oddly silent goddaughter. How long is this book, by the way? I was like, yeah, a few pages. Giannis making a emote too. Yeah, wait, what? This is so beautiful. I need warm milk and a blankie for this. You're making me sleepy. Hold on one sec. Okay. Alright, let's continue the story. Aranzebia tried not to think about the dead princess's castle, but it was a futile effort. The place haunted the edges of her very thought. It was less than a month before she returned. This time, as soon as she stepped inside the castle, the desolate scene transformed into a luxurious palace. A grand staircase coiled away to a lofty upper levels, and the dead princess was sitting towards the top, waiting. "What took you so long?" the princess demanded. "Don't you know how much I missed you? I got so lonely. I prepared lots of things for us to do. But the whole time I was worried you'd never come back." Gleefully, they began to play together once again. This time, Aranzebia tried to mind the time, hoping to return home before she was aroused suspicion. However, when she finally left the castle, 7 days had passed. Her parents forbade her from leaving the house by herself. Every night, in her dreams, she saw the dead princess calling to her, laughing and telling her all about the fun she'd planned. 15 days later, Aranzebia snuck out and returned to the castle. Wanting to teach her friend some elven games, she brought along a set of shiny marbles. This time, the castle's interiors refused to transform. It struck Aranzebia how dank and dreary the place looked, walls and ceilings cloudy with cobwebs, eddies of whirling dirt marking every footstep. Even worse, the dead princess was nowhere to be seen. Aranzebia crept down to the cellar, but couldn't find the doorway draped with golden curtains. She wanted to call out to her friend, but she realized she didn't know the girl's name. She wandered aimlessly, then finally climbed to the staircase landing. At the top of the staircase, someone was waiting to her, Aranzeb. Suddenly, Aranzeb seized his goddaughter's hand and pulled her behind him. There was no time for him to explain how he'd found her. His eyes were focused on the staircase she just left. Following his gaze, Aranzebia saw she hadn't been alone. A mysterious mass was slithering up the stairs, dripping blackened water, mere steps behind where she had stood. It writhed and squirmed towards them from the bottom of the stairs. "Identify yourself!" Aranzeb shouted, his voice echoing in the castle's empty vaults. The dark mass shaped itself into the dead princess Aranzebia had come to meet. "You betrayed me!" she shrieked at Aranzebia. "You swore you'd never tell!" Aranzebia whipped her head from side to side. "No," she cried. "I swear I didn't tell him. He followed me." fighting to hold back his panic goddaughter, Aranzeb took advantage of the creature's momentary distraction. He cast the powerful binding magic, and the dead princess shrieked in pain. Aranzebia wept and begged him to release her injured friend. Finally, her godfather rounded on her anger. Aranzebia, stop! Can't you see? The creature's no friend, it is a monster! This place is a castle of the dead princess, Aranzeb explained. That thing you call your friend is the spirit of the murderous child. She slew her family, and she would have killed you as well. Or worse, use your body to live again. Aranzebia shook her head in shock. No, she whispered. No, she was only my friend. But Aranzeb knew the legends of the castle where they stood, a tale so terrible and even the elves had heard of it, and still remembered. The story of a twisted human child and a key she'd found that could open any door. No one knew where the key comes from, but it could open doors to places not of this world and seal them closed again without a trace. The wicked princess had used it to lock away each member of her family, one at a time. Then hide her crimes she'd done in the same way with anyone who displeased her. Hundreds of innocents banished to the freezing void with no hopes of escape. Once the culprit was discovered, it had taken an entire cadre of mages to stop the girl and trap her in one place. With the power of the key at her disposal, no one could face her without risking escape. In desperate final effort, her pursuers managed to confine her in her own castle, sealing it with a potent magic, where she faced the same fate she had forced upon so many others. Death by starvation, alone in the darkness that was once her family home. Though Aranzeb saw no sign of her infamous key, her knew he faced the spirit of a murderous dead princess. Raising his hand, he unleashed a searing ray of exorcising light, melting her hideous form into a pool of putrid water. He then shouted a word of banishment, and the water evaporated. Exhausted, Aranzeb hugged his hysterical goddaughter, trying desperately to calm her down. Aranzebia flung off his embrace and bolted to the step where she'd last seen her friend. Her fingers groped along the floor, seeking out any trace of the girl. Leaping to her feet, she raced back to the landing, barreling straight for the railing. Thinking she might be about to jump, Aranzeb grabbed her. However, his goddaughter simply leaned over the railing, her outstretched arms flailing wildly. "Gone!" she shrieked. "Where has she gone?" As she grew more and more distraught, Aranzeb decided he had no choice but to cast a calming spell on her. Aranzeb carried his godchild back to her family home. Half asleep, she mumbled fitfully to herself, clutching his shoulder and whimpering in the night. Aranzeb hugged her, stroking her hair and trying to comfort her. "It was only a bad dream," he murmured. "You're safe now, sleep." Aranzebia slept for 2 days straight. Her godfather stayed at her bedside day and night, refusing to leave until she woke. Meanwhile, the elders sealed the dead princess's castle, and while his battle with her angry spirit would go on to become a legend, neither Aranzeb nor the elders were ever able to find the princess's cursed key. When Aranzebia finally awoke, she was even more withdrawn than usual. She would not speak of her ordeal and would often shy away from her own family's efforts to reach out. But between her and Aranzeb, something had changed. Where she once ignored her godfather, she now watched him with a piercing gaze. Aranzeb feared she might never speak to him again, but feast that night she finally broke her silence. "I thank you, Aranzeb, for showing me the fallibility of love. I was a child, but I'm no longer. I promise that my next love will not be so easily broken." Another handwritten note adorns the back page. "Thanks to the cultist inscriptions we found, I'm convinced that Aranzebia kept the key of the dead princess. Even now, as the goddess Dahuta, she could be using it to lock away her most important treasures. The fragment tells us that to keep the key safe, Dahuta broke it into 2 pieces. One she gave to her champion Nazar in the depths of the sunken city. The other went to Animit, her chosen disciple amongst the returned. Could they still hold the key fragments even today?" Ladies and gentlemen, the story of... What was it? The story of Aranzebia, the dead princess.